How's everyone doing?
Great.
We're here. It's May Day. Happy May Day. It's such a significant day in so many traditions. It's the traditional Beltane Celtic holiday, which is the halfway point between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. So we are halfway to summer. Woo! It was traditionally a day when they would do the maypoles and jump over fire. We're not going to do that today. Children. Or adults who are thinking about it. Fire would be one. Maybe we can start a fire later. But it's also our first potluck. So the first Sunday of every month we're going to do a potluck. That's today. And May Day is also the International Workers' Day, when workers attributed this day for organizing and unionizing. And May Day is, we credit it for giving us our weekends. So here we are, enjoying it, living it up, and continuing the work and organizing around fair and safe labor for everyone. So thanks for being here to celebrate all of this awesome stuff that's going on. And it's now time for us to share with our neighbors a little bit of what's new and good in your life.
They always have a messy.
So we're extending our crowdfunding campaign for one more week to give everyone time to figure out their donation. And we're also counting if you're one of our, I think we're up to like 17 recurring donors, which is amazing. If you want to increase that by a few dollars, we will count whatever that amounts to over the course of the year as part of our total towards our goal. So we have an extra week to make those adjustments and plans and to keep sharing about why you want other folks to know about and support this awesome little wild community we have going strong here.
And here's the
We also have, at the end of the month, you'll see the Enneagram in the Wild retreat.
And it's finally May!
So May 20th to 21st, we will be here for 24 hours, an intensive co-learning retreat about the Enneagram. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, talk to me or Zach or Valerie after, and we can give you the 30-second about the Enneagram personality profiling. And it will be a wonderful weekend to dive into that and explore your inner self with friends.
I'm just going to
Yes.
tell everybody.
Yes. Grandma brought a cake, which is perfect because Jackson's birthday is today.
Yay!
You already had cake. We have more cake and cookies and lots of food.
I'm going to go with cookies and already have. Now we're watching to make strawberry shapes.
So after we're done worshiping, you are welcome to stay. There is a lot of food over there, so please stay and eat. Even whether you bring something or not on the first Sunday of every month, there will be something here for you to eat. So never feel like, oh, I can't stay because I didn't bring something. There will always be plenty of food. There are many United Methodists here, and that is part of our love language, is feeding people and potluck.
Okay.
So I think that's the main stuff we have going on. Is there anything else we should mention? Find us online. Please help keep sharing our crowdfunding, and thank you to everybody. We're over 3,000. Great. So very exciting, and we're talking about deepening our roots as a community. We have lots of ideas about branching out and doing more. But we want to make sure we have that solid foundation before we do those things. So thank you to all of you for helping be the roots here today.
Mommy,
Yes.
your shirt matches their shirt.
You can also get a shirt on our website. All right, I think
And you got to flip a few blocks of mine.
now is the time to use the blocks to stay quiet. Now we can have our our official welcome to our time and space of worship from Jan.
Welcome, beloved creatures, to this sacred space. Here, as we honor creation and the one who created it, may we feel the sacred presence. May we reconnect to the earth, to one another, and to ourselves. And may we be renewed in body and spirit to be conduits of love. Let's use what we've been given to build an altar honoring our Creator. So go get something from nature and put it on the altar as we sing. Find something?
On top of someone else. This is where we are called.
Some squirrel just took that to
Little
pieces.
red squirrels. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we.
To read to you, called Cycles of Belonging by Stella Tomlinson. When did I forget I'm made of the elements? When did I stop noticing the miracle of the world turning? When did I no longer see the spark in a bird's eye? When did I not stop hearing the whispers of trees? When did I stop swooning at the stars and the beauty of the moon? When did I lose connection to the web of life? But now I am remembering, and now I see the truth. I know that life is a miracle cycling every day through growth, death, and rebirth. I know that I am part of this mysterious unfurling, spiraling, cycling. Ancient wisdom is waking up and rising within me, opening my eyes and senses, opening my mind to the knowledge that was always there. opening my heart to the love of Mother Earth and Goddess, for she is returning.
I'm sure you've heard this lovely camp song many times. The lyrics, I believe, are on the back. It's pretty simple, and I figured we'll sing through it once. And then I'll need some help filling in some blanks, because I think in honor of May Day and spring finally decided to show itself up here, that we can think about things that we personally love about the spring, and particularly this day. So you can start to get those creative juices flowing. Here we go. I love the rolling hills. I love the flowers. I love the daffodils. I love the firelight. Oh, and the lights are one more time. I love the mountains. I love the rolling hills. I love the flowers. I love the daffodils. I love the firelight. Oh, and the lights are about May Day, about the spring, or things that we're seeing around us.
Flowers and pine cones.
Flowers and pine cones. I love flowers. I love pine cones. I usually have something to write down, but I'm going to trust you guys can help me remember.
Violets and dandelions.
Violets and dandelions.
Forest community.
Alright, here's my challenge. So the last line, I love the forest community when ...
Everything. Frogs are croaking. Everything.
Am I putting you on the spot enough today?
Yes.
Yeah.
When the sun comes out.
Ooh. I love the forest community when the sun is out. So we got I love flowers, I love pine cones, I love violets and dandelions. I love our forest community when the sun is out. Should we give it a try? I love flowers, I love pine cones, I love violets, I love dandelions, I love the forest community when the sun is out. I love flowers, I love pine cones, I love violets, I love dandelions, I love the forest community when the sun is out. Alright, kiddos, what are some of your favorite things about the spring?
What do you like about spring,
What do you like
Becca?
about the season of spring?
Making music.
Flowers.
I love flowers. I love making music.
Riding on a new bike.
I love riding my bike. I love anything else? Anything else we love about the spring?
What do you love about spring?
Easter.
Oh, Easter. Then we need one more.
I think Clay can answer.
Growth.
I think his most favorite thing is being with Grandma Dolly.
Aww. I love being with family when we're all together. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
So we got I love flowers, I love making music, I love riding my bike, I love...
new.
What's that?
A new bike.
Oh, I love riding my new bike. And I love flowers. I love being with family when we're all
What
together.
about
Let's see, we'll see. You'll have to help me out. Clay, can you help me out? Alright, here we go. One more time. I love flowers. I love making music. I love
Riding
my
my bike.
when the love comes. I love my friends when we're together. One more time.
So yes, we are taking this month, and maybe we need to extend it too, because we already have the 5 weeks of May scheduled with saints. So we are nominating our own Church in the Wild saints. Most people probably are vaguely aware of this idea of somebody who's a saint, right? And different traditions have different ways of deciding who gets to be a saint. And like in the Catholic Church, I think you have to have like 3 miracles or something attributed to you, and a lot of the Catholic saints are also like Episcopal saints, and everybody though kind of has their own list. And so we thought, sort of jokingly, it started with Mr. Rogers and Jane Goodall being mentioned, and we thought we should make our own list of Church in the Wild saints. And for us, that just, well, for me, I guess, that just means someone who has done something, even if it was just one thing in their life, or their whole life in general maybe, is something to look up to and to aspire to or be inspired by as we as a community work to follow that wild spirit that we're fond of talking about, and to care for nature and connect with it. So these will be folks that are inspirational in many ways, whether it's environmental or social justice, or just having a deep faith and connection to the spirit that we can use as sort of inspiration and guides in our own journeys. So today I wanted to start us off with one of my favorites, Thecla. She is a saint, actually, in the Catholic Church, and I think also within the Episcopal Church, but her story and her saint day have largely been suppressed. For a long time, she was hugely famous and popular until a few hundred years after her life. Tertullian, for anybody who knows that name, was really had it out for Thecla. He was nervous about her story because, as you will hear, it empowered women, and that is something that sadly even members of the Jesus movement, who was all about empowering women, they wanted to disempower them. So it's a sad fate that Thecla has been forgotten, but we are bringing her back. And it's been such a great week spending time reading about and thinking about Thecla. She is an incredible person. And as I was trying to figure out how to promote her, or how to sort of advertise our worship today, I realized that Thecla was the Lizzo of the first century.
Oh, yay!
Yes? Anyone not know Lizzo? It's okay. Yeah, so she is an amazing hip-hop artist, and she is all about just being her full self, living out loud, unapologetically. And she is all about female empowerment and being who you are without caring about what other people think of you, and knowing your worth. And that is what Thecla did for women of the first century. No, it's time for you to be playing with Tati.
Play with Daddy!
Go.
1, 2, 3.
Go get away. So that's my introduction. That's how I think we should think of Thecla, as the Lizzo of the first century. So Thecla, as you heard, faced some pretty incredible attacks. And how she got to that story we heard is she was a rich young woman, prominent in her small town, and one day out of her window she heard someone preaching at her neighbor's house. That person was Paul, one of the famous writers of most of the New Christian Testament. So he traveled all around. One thing I think it's important to know about him, he wasn't one of the disciples that walked around with Jesus. He converted later on and had a vision of Jesus, and then went from persecuting Christians to being one of the biggest evangelists in early Christianity. So she hears him preaching, and she is captivated. She won't leave her window. She won't even eat. And the problem arises because Paul, at this particular time, which is interesting that this message of his is kind of erased from his other writings, but he was preaching abstinence and being celibate and not getting married as a way of devoting your life to God. And she heard this and thought, that's what I'm going to do. She was so moved by the stories he told of Jesus and this call to remain single that she told her fiance, who she was engaged to, that their wedding was off, and he and her mother lost it. So they got Paul kicked out of town, and they convinced the governor to have her burned at the stake to set an example for all other women that they better stay in line and fill their role and get married. That was their, to go from their father's property to their husband's, and that was that. And they didn't want anybody straying from that plan for women. So they made an example out of her, burned her at the stake, except there was some kind of, the way it's described, it sounds like steam opened up underneath her and put the fire out, and hail came, and there was a big storm. It was like some kind of volcanic thunderstorm combination that happened. And so everybody was really freaked out, and she got away. She went and found Paul, who was so relieved, and she said, baptize me. I was almost just killed for this cause. Like, baptize me, and let's do it. And he was like, no, it's not your time. So then she follows him to his next town where he's preaching, and this politician in the street accosts her, and she's not taking any of that. So she tears his robe off of him and embarrasses him. And of course, he's a politician, he has power and money, so he's like, well, throw her into the lion pit. So that's what happens. But the first lioness that comes out is said to have come and licked her feet. Obviously, there was this incredible connection there between that animal and her, and defended her against all the other animals until that lion itself died. And then, as you heard, all the women in the arena, they got out their ointments, right? And they started throwing them all over the place. And it makes such a scent. I can just imagine this fog of perfume through this whole huge arena that the animals just pass out from it. So then she sees there's a pool of water, and in my mind, I envisioned it like Braveheart. Like, I will be baptized! And she runs, and everybody's like, no, there's sea lions in there, they're gonna eat you. She jumps in, is baptized, baptizes herself, so badass. And then a storm comes and electrocutes the sea lions, or something happens where, she doesn't get eaten. So finally she escapes, finds Paul again. That's the thing, even though he wouldn't baptize her, she doesn't just totally write him off. She continues to go to him because his preaching was what it so inspired her to begin with. And so she finds him again and says, listen, I baptized myself, and that spirit that did that is calling me to go preach about Jesus. And he was like, okay, do it. I'm not going to stop you this time. Fine. So that's what she does. She goes, she tries to reconcile with her mom. Doesn't work. So she's like, all right, well, see ya. She makes her own life in a new town. She actually kind of becomes a little bit of a hermit She lives in a cave on a hill, and all these other women start coming to her because her way of life is the way out of the prescribed womanhood at the time. Now we think of like, it would almost be like joining a convent, becoming a nun. That sounds kind of oppressive to like a free and full life. But for these women, this was their way out of the oppression of being owned by your husband. And if you didn't want to get married to have kids, you didn't have any other options other than prostitution. So this was like a third way, which was really exciting. And it was a time they kept talking about how beautiful Thecla was. So to me, it felt like she finally claimed her own self-worth that was removed from her appearance and her physical body, which is so amazing. And it's like she figured out, there's a religious exemption to marriage. Like I could do this other way of life and be on my own and be independent.
Mommy?
So a lot of other women...
I know what to give everybody for dinner.
Thank you. Wait.
Teddy Grahams.
Great. So a lot of other women sought her out and wanted to know more. And she sort of started this monastic way of life for women at that time in her area, where they could sort of opt out of the prescribed society rules for women and choose their own way. And it said that she was an incredible, powerful healer. So people started coming to her from all the surrounding towns for healing from all their ailments. And pretty soon, doctors in those towns started to get really annoyed that she was taking all their business away from them. So at this point, she's like 90 years old. She's been living in the mountains on her own terms for 75 years, it said. And the doctors of the surrounding towns are sick of her healing everyone. So they get a crowd of young men together to go up the hill and rape her, because they think once she's not a virgin, then the gods won't be giving her power anymore to heal people. That was their plan. So these young men get drunk, come up the mountain to her cave, and she's like, oh, wow, you're cute, guys. It's, nothing against you, but this isn't going to happen. And she politely prays to God and excuses herself. And God opens up the rocks of her cave, and she disappears into the crust of the earth. And legend says that she wandered through the crust of the earth until she found where Paul was buried, and she laid down to her eternal rest with him. So, other than just being an incredible, badass story about a badass woman that we don't get to hear about, I think she is someone we should emulate because she chooses life on her own terms. Even though Paul wasn't the best ally he could have been to her, she doesn't completely write him off, right? She stays connected to that person who first sort of opened her eyes and devoted to him and his teachings. And what I love most about her for our community happened to be a quote that I saw this week that said, one of the greatest secrets to success is to start before you're ready. And if that doesn't describe Thecla, I don't know what does. I mean, she was all in before Paul would even baptize her. She was, preaching and so sure that God would protect her through all these attempted...
If you want to drink it,
thank you. She was sure that God was going to protect her through all of these attempted executions, even though she had just, like a week before, found out about this new way, this new movement that was happening. So she really started before she was ready. And it reminded me of one of the lines that Laurel often uses. Do you know what I'm going to say?
How does it call the equipped? God equipped the call?
Oh, that wasn't the one I was thinking of. Ready, fire, aim.
Oh, no.
Ready, fire, aim. You know, I just picture her like taking off towards that what turned out to be her baptismal font, not realizing that creatures could have been in there to eat her. But she was so determined, and God provided in that moment. And she did it herself. She completely took the reins. And that's when I think about our community here, that's sort of how it happened, right? We just sort of said, let's do this. We weren't ready by, any business standard or even like nonprofit. We didn't have everything together, but we knew this was something we wanted to do. So we just started doing it and figured it would come together as we went along. And I keep seeing that again and again. Like we were talking as we were restarting meeting out together here for the spring, because we were on Zoom for the winter. We said, we got to get a van to bring people out, and we got to get childcare, and how are we going to do this? And then it just started to happen before we were even ready. Tati volunteered to start before we had the funds to pay her, and then we came up with the funds, and we were ready, we fired, and then we aimed, basically. And so I think of Thecla as being a really great saint for Church in the Wild, because she did things on her own terms, and she was ready to go before she should have been. Mama. And that's okay. We can trust that the Spirit will see us through all of anything that might come about. So that's my encouragement for us this week, is to think about Thecla the next time we're not sure if we're ready, and to dive in trusting that whatever beasts we might face, there are friends among them, and there are allies to be had with the lion and the sea lion and the bear, and we can trust that the wild spirit will be there to see us through. So that's Thecla. What would you like to share?
If you got the question, tell Mama.
Thank you. And I forgot to say, last year we decided that the blue heron is our mascot for Church in the Wild, and I think her name should be Thecla. So that's my other nomination. So, all those in favor of canonizing Saint Thecla as a Church in the Wild saint, shall we say amen?
Amen.
Hey.
All right. So if you'll join me in finding a posture you can hold for the next few minutes. Something comfortable, but that allows you to remain alert and present. Let's close our eyes and, at your own pace, scan down through your body from head to toe. You can make adjustments if needed, or just notice how your body is right now. All the way down to your feet where they meet the earth, I invite you to bring your attention to your own natural breath. Notice which part of the breath it's easiest to be present to. The rising of the chest, or the expansion of the belly, or where your breath moves in and out of your nose. I I invite you to stay with the breath, counting each one up to 10, and then beginning again at 1.
Okay, we can play Sting Bee, but we need to stay up here.
If you find that your attention has wandered from the breath, that's normal. It may happen many times. Just notice it happening. Acknowledge the moment and bring your attention back to the breath that's always there for you. If your attention has wandered again, gently note it and coax yourself back to your awareness of the breath. You're invited to continue resting here in the awareness of the breath. And you're also invited to join me in asking yourself a contemplative question. It might help to ask yourself the question as if you were asking a dear friend, without any expectation of what answer might arise. Call to mind a situation in your life where it feels like there are only 2 options. Ask yourself, is there a third way? Ask yourself, is there a third way? Answer might come to you in words or pictures, or maybe a sensation or feeling arising in the body. Or no answer comes at all. I invite you to continue resting with this question. Is there a third way? Bring our time of meditation to a close, and if it feels right to you, I invite you to offer gratitude to yourself for making time to be present, and to the wild spirit who abides with us. I invite you to let the physical sensations in the body and the sounds bring you back to this present moment, and whenever you're ready, you may open your eyes.
So feel free to sing along. The lyrics are on the back if you're familiar. Happiness hit her like a train on a track. Coming towards her, stuck still, no turning back. She hid around corners and she hid under beds. She killed pieces and from it she fled. With every bubble she sang with her death and washed it away down the kitchen sink. The dark days are over, the dark days are done. The horses are coming, so you better run. Run fast for your mother, run fast for your father, run for your children, all your sisters and your brothers. Leave all your love and your loving behind. Can't carry it with you if you want to survive. The dark days are over, the dark days are done. The horses are coming, you better run. And I never wanted anything from you except for everything you had. What was left after that you owe? Happiness hit her like a bullet in the head. Struck her by a great height, by someone who should know better than that. The dark days are over, the dark days are done. Can you hear the horses? 'Cause here they come. Run fast for your mother, run fast for your father, run for your children, all your sisters and your brothers. Leave all your love and your loving behind. You can't carry it with you if you want to survive. The dark days are over, the dark days are done. Can you hear the horses? 'Cause here they come. 'Cause here they come.
So how do we want to spend our
I
week?
think I can tell everybody.
Is there a word or a
I
phrase?
can.
Is there a word or a phrase that you want to use to guide you in the week ahead? I want us to do a segue into our time of communing together and communing with nature. Some churches have communion every month. We're having a potluck every month, and this is how I want us to celebrate that time together with a litany of belonging by Richard Rohr. So every time I'm going to read a little sentence, and then you respond with "I belong." And that's to remind you that we all belong at the Spirit's holy table that we're about to share. People on all parts of the continuum of gender identity and expression, including those who are gay, bisexual, heterosexual, transgender, cisgender, queer folks, the sexually active, the celibate, and everyone for whom those labels don't apply. I belong. People of African descent, Asian descent, of European descent, of First Nations descent in this land and abroad, people of mixed and multiple descents, and of all the languages spoken here. Bodies with all abilities and challenges, those living with chronic medical condition, visible or invisible, mental or physical. People who identify as activists and those who don't. Mystics, believers, seekers of all kinds, people of all ages, those who support you to be here. Your emotions, joy, fear, grief, contentment, disappointment, surprise, and all else that flows through you. Your families, genetic and otherwise. Those dear to us who have died, our ancestors and the future ones, the ancestors who lived in this land, in this place where these buildings are now. We honor you through this work that we are undertaking. People who feel broken, lost, struggling, who suffer from self-doubt and self-judgment. All beings that inhabit this earth. The two-legged, the four-legged, winged and finned, those that walk, fly, and crawl, above the ground and below, in air and water. I belong. Let's eat.